Florence Griffith Joyner shattered records, redefined style in sports, and became a global icon overnight. But then it all came to a tragic and sudden end. For years, questions lingered, whispers spread, and the truth? It stayed buried until now. Join us as we uncover what really happened to Florence Griffith Joyner. A childhood forged in adversity. Florence Griffith Joyner was born on December 21, 1959, in the tough neighborhood of Watts in Los Angeles, California. She was the seventh of 11 children in a large, struggling family. Life was not easy. Her childhood was shaped by poverty, hardship, and the daily challenges of growing up in one of the roughest areas of the city. The family lived in the Watts projects, surrounded by crime and limited opportunities. They didn't have much money, and making ends meet was always a problem. When Florence was just 4 years old, her parents separated. That made things even harder. With so many siblings and only one parent at home, each day brought new challenges. There was little room for comfort or personal attention, and Florence often had to figure things out on her own. Her home life and neighborhood made her grow up fast. Despite the struggle, Florence never gave up hope. She had big dreams from a young age. She wanted to be a designer, a poet, and even an artist. People didn't take her seriously. Her family and neighbors would laugh and tease her when she talked about her goals. They thought she was being unrealistic. She was often called DD by those around her, a nickname that stuck. Her father, Robert, had strong beliefs about how his children should carry themselves. He didn't want them to sound like they came from the streets. He made sure they spoke clearly and properly. He believed it would protect them and help them be taken seriously. But in their neighborhood, this made Florence stand out. Other kids made fun of her for sounding too proper. At home and outside, she often felt caught between two worlds. She didn't fully belong to either. But there was one place where everything made sense: the track. Running felt natural. It gave her peace and purpose. By the time she was just 7 years old, Florence was already racing and winning. People started to notice her speed, and it was only the beginning. When Florence Griffith was 19 years old, her dream of becoming a top athlete had to take a back seat. Life at home was difficult, and her family was still struggling financially. She had to make a choice: continue chasing her dream or step up and help support the people she loved. Florence chose her family. She stopped training and started working as a bank teller. It was a tough decision, especially for someone who had already shown so much talent on the track. But at that point, paying bills and helping out was more important than running fast. For a while, it seemed like her athletic career might be over. She was still young, but being out of the sport for even a short time can make a big difference. Her body wasn't in the same shape. She wasn't training every day. Her dreams felt further away than ever. Then something unexpected happened. One day, while working at the bank, Florence saw someone familiar. It was Bob Kersey, a well-known track coach who had trained some of the best runners in the country. He recognized her immediately. He remembered her potential and asked her why she wasn't running anymore. That moment changed everything. Bob believed in her and offered to help get her back on track, literally. With his support, Florence was able to enroll at UCLA. She started training seriously again. But her return wasn't as smooth as people might think. Florence faced a lot of challenges, especially with one key part of sprinting: her start. Getting out of the blocks quickly is one of the most important skills for a sprinter. No matter how fast you are, if you're slow off the start, you fall behind. Florence struggled with this more than anything else. No matter how hard she tried, it didn't come naturally. And just when things seemed stuck, the world of Olympic dreams opened up, only to slam shut again. Becoming a champion. By 1980, Florence Griffith had worked hard to get back into competitive shape. Her return to the track was starting to pay off. She was training seriously again, pushing through the setbacks and finally beginning to see real progress. That year, she made it to the U.S. Olympic trials and came very close to earning a spot on the team headed to the Summer Olympics in Moscow. Competing against some of the best sprinters in the country, Florence showed she belonged among them. It was her first big shot at the Olympics, and it felt like the moment she had been working toward her whole life. But something happened that was completely out of her control. That year, the United States government decided to boycott the 1980 Summer Olympics. This was in response to the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. The decision was political, and more than 60 other countries joined the boycott. For Florence and many other athletes, it was heartbreaking. They had trained for years, sacrificed everything, and now their dream was being taken away, not because of injury, not because of performance, but because of international politics. Florence didn't just lose a race. She lost the chance to prove herself on the world stage. She had earned the opportunity, but it was gone. The emotional impact was deep. The Olympics only come once every 4 years. For most athletes, missing just one can mean never getting another chance. The disappointment hit her hard. All the effort, the hours of training, the sacrifices, it felt like they didn't matter. After the boycott, Florence was left without direction. She tried to stay focused, but the weight of what had been taken from her was too heavy. Eventually, she dropped out of school. She stopped competing again and went back to working at the bank. It was another pause in her career, another time when her dream seemed out of reach. The 1980 Olympic boycott didn't just delay her progress, it almost ended her journey. But Florence had something inside her that never completely faded, even when everything around her seemed lost. Because just when her career looked finished, help stepped in, and a comeback started to take shape. Florence Griffith's return to the track began once again with the help of her former coach, Bob Kersey. After the heartbreak of missing the 1980 Olympics and dropping out of school, Florence found herself drifting. But Kersey didn't give up on her. He fought to get her financial aid, and with his help, Florence returned to UCLA. This gave her another chance to train and focus on her athletic career. And this time, she approached it with new determination. One major change she made was shifting her focus from the 100 meters to the 200 meters. This was a smart move. Florence had always struggled with her start. Those first few steps out of the blocks were never her strength. The 200 meters gave her more time to build speed and make up for any lost ground in the beginning. It gave her space to run her race the way she wanted. Florence trained relentlessly. She was in the gym late at night, often long after others had gone home. Every past disappointment, every coach who doubted her, every moment she had to step away from the sport, she used it as fuel. She didn't just want to compete, she wanted to win. And slowly the results began to show. All of that hard work led to the biggest stage of all, the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. Running on home soil, Florence competed in the 200 meters and won the silver medal. For most athletes, standing on an Olympic podium would be a dream come true. But for Florence, it felt like something was missing. She had aimed for gold, and coming in second left her with a feeling of emptiness. It wasn't the ending she wanted. After the Olympics, Florence stepped away from the sport once again. She went back to working at a bank, unsure if she would return to competition. But her story was far from over, and her next chapter would shock the world. A love story born on the track. Florence Griffith first crossed paths with Al Joyner at the 1980 U.S. Olympic trials in Eugene, Oregon. At the time, Florence was a talented sprinter from UCLA, and Al was a rising star in the triple jump. Their meeting was brief. Al thought Florence was a trainer when he first saw her at the sign-in table. They introduced themselves but didn't talk much more. The next day, Al watched Florence warm up for her race and couldn't take his eyes off her. He asked his sister Jackie Joyner if Florence was seeing anyone. Jackie, who would later become one of the greatest heptathletes in history, teased her brother and said Florence probably wasn't interested. Al respected that and kept his distance. Their lives moved on, but that moment stuck with him. It wasn't until 6 years later, in 1986, that Florence and Al finally started dating. By then, both had earned respect in the world of track and field. They understood the pressures of elite competition and connected on a deep level. Their relationship quickly grew stronger. They supported each other as athletes and as people. It didn't take long for them to realize they were meant to be together. Originally, they planned to have a traditional wedding after the 1988 Olympics. But on October 1, 1987, a powerful earthquake hit Los Angeles. It was a frightening experience that reminded Florence how short and fragile life could be. After the quake, she told Al they shouldn't wait any longer. Just 9 days later, on October 10, 1987, they got married in Las Vegas. Florence wore a dress she had once used as a Halloween costume. The wedding was small and simple, but full of love. The number 7 had special meaning in their relationship. Al proposed to Florence on July 17, 1987. They chose October 10th for their wedding, keeping that number close to their hearts. It became a symbol of their bond and timing. What came next would change not just her career but the entire world of track and field. After marrying Al Joyner in 1987, Florence Griffith Joyner made a bold decision that would completely change the course of her athletic career. She decided to leave behind the strict technical coaching of Bob Kersee and train under a new system, one created by Al. Unlike Kersee's methods, which focused on copying other successful runners, Al's coaching was personal and belief-driven. He didn't try to make Florence fit into someone else's mold. Instead, he built a program around her unique strengths and personality. One of the biggest changes was her physical training. Under Al's guidance, Florence began focusing heavily on building raw strength. She started lifting serious weights, far more than most female sprinters were doing at the time. Her workouts included squats and lunges with up to 320 pounds. That level of strength training helped her gain powerful leg muscles, which improved her drive out of the blocks and added force to every stride. Her core workouts were just as intense. Florence often did up to 1,000 sit-ups a day. These exercises built the kind of midsection strength that sprinters need to stay balanced, explosive, and quick from start to finish. Everything about her new training plan was about pushing her limits and making her body as powerful as possible. Florence and Al also studied the best male sprinters in the world, including Ben Johnson and Carl Lewis. They paid close attention to how these athletes exploded off the blocks and maintained top speed. Florence wanted to improve the part of her race she had struggled with the most, her start. Watching how the men launched themselves forward gave her new insights and techniques to try. This transformation wasn't just physical. It gave Florence a new kind of confidence. She felt unstoppable, and soon the entire world would see the results for themselves. What happened next would break records and spark debates that still haven't ended. Flojo becomes legend. In 1988, Florence Griffith Joyner didn't just return to the track, she made history. That summer at the U.S. Olympic Trials in Indianapolis, the world saw something it had never seen before. On July 16th, during the quarterfinals of the 100-meter dash, Flojo ran a time of 10.49 seconds. It shattered the existing world record of 10.79 and stunned everyone watching. Her time was so fast that some people thought the timing system had made a mistake. Even the officials questioned it, but the wind reading showed zero assistance. The record was real. Over the next 2 days, Florence continued to dominate. She ran 10.70 in the semifinal and 10.61 in the final. Those three times, 10.49, 10.70, and 10.61, became the three fastest 100-meter races in history by a woman, all within one competition. Her performance was not only breathtaking, but also unmatched. To this day, no one has officially run faster than her world record. Then came the 1988 Seoul Olympics. With the world watching, Florence proved that her record-breaking speed wasn't a one-time event. She won the gold medal in the 100 meters, finishing with a time of 10.54 seconds, still the second fastest time ever recorded. Her style, grace, and power made her stand out from every other athlete on the track. She didn't stop there. In the 200 meters, Florence crushed the world record in both the semifinal and final. She ran 21.56 seconds in the semi, and then 21.34 seconds in the final. That 200-meter time still stands as the world record today, more than 35 years later. No woman has come close. On top of her individual wins, Florence helped the U.S. women's team win the gold medal in the 4x 100-meter relay. She ran the third leg and passed the baton with a big lead. Just 40 minutes later, she returned for the 4x 400-meter relay, running the anchor leg in an incredible 48.10 seconds. The U.S. team took home the silver medal, finishing just behind the Soviet Union. By the end of the Seoul Olympics, Flojo had won 3 gold medals and 1 silver. Adding her silver from the 1984 Olympics, she had a total of 5 Olympic medals. But while her success made her a global star, it also brought controversy that she couldn't avoid. After her record-breaking performance in 1988, Florence Griffith Joyner became a global superstar. But along with the fame came growing suspicion. People around the world began questioning how she had improved so quickly. As a result, rumors began to spread. Many wondered if performance-enhancing drugs were behind her sudden rise. She had always been fast, but now she was running at a level no one had expected. Even though there was no proof, some people accused her of doping. The media added fuel to the fire, especially after Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson was caught using steroids at those same Olympics. People started comparing the two cases, even though Florence had passed every test. One of the most serious claims came from Darryl Robinson, a former track athlete. He told a newspaper that he had sold growth hormone to Florence, but he never showed any evidence, and Florence strongly denied his accusations. She called him a liar and stood by her clean record. In truth, Florence was tested often, more than most athletes at the time. During the Seoul Olympics, the International Olympic Committee gave extra attention to her because of the rumors. Prince Alexandre de Merode, who led the IOC's medical commission, ordered additional tests just to be sure. Just a few months after dominating the Olympics, Florence shocked everyone by announcing her retirement in early 1989. She was only 29 years old. She said she wanted to focus on business opportunities, but many people believed there was more to the story. Some suggested she left the sport to avoid the stricter drug testing rules that were about to be introduced. Still, Florence never failed a drug test, and soon she was building a new life away from the track, one that was just as bold and unexpected. Building a post-athletic empire. After leaving the track in 1989, Florence Griffith Joyner didn't slow down. Instead, she reinvented herself again, this time as a businesswoman, designer, author, and role model. Her unique style, combined with her Olympic success, had made her a household name. Now she used that fame to build a career beyond sports. Florence became a true pop culture icon. She signed major endorsement deals with brands like Nike and Avon, and companies wanted her face on everything from makeup to athletic gear. At the peak of her post-Olympic fame, she was earning about $4 million a year, making her one of the highest-paid female athletes of her time. She wasn't just an athlete anymore, she was a brand. Flojo also tapped into her lifelong love of fashion and design. In 1989, she designed the uniforms for the NBA's Indiana Pacers, used during the 1989-90 season. This was a big moment, as few athletes, especially women, had ever designed pro sports uniforms. Beyond entertainment, Florence gave back to her community. In 1993, President Bill Clinton appointed her as co-chair of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. She used her position to promote healthy lifestyles and physical education for kids across America. She spoke at schools and events, always pushing the message of discipline, self-worth, and dreaming beyond your circumstances. The medical mystery. No one saw coming. Just 2 years after becoming the fastest woman in history, Florence Griffith Joyner experienced something that would quietly change the rest of her life. In 1990, at just 30 years old, she had her first seizure. It came without warning. One moment she felt fine, the next her body lost control. For someone known for her physical strength and discipline, it was frightening. Even more troubling was that doctors couldn't explain exactly why it happened. The episode left her shaken, but she tried to move on and keep it private. Over the next few years, the seizures didn't stop. In 1993 and 1994, she experienced additional episodes. Each one was dangerous, unpredictable, and emotionally draining. Still, Florence chose to stay quiet. Only her close family knew what was happening. She didn't want the public or the media to focus on her health instead of her accomplishments or her ongoing work in business and community service. Then in 1996, a particularly serious seizure occurred while she was traveling on a flight to St. Louis with her husband Al and their young daughter Mary. During the flight, Florence collapsed. The incident was terrifying for her family. Emergency care was needed right away, and once again, doctors had no simple answers. Afterward, Florence began taking anti-epileptic medications regularly. She was officially diagnosed with a seizure disorder, though details about the exact cause were never made public. Still, the family made the choice to keep everything as private as possible. They didn't want the world to worry, or worse, speculate. Florence kept working, smiling, and making public appearances. Her glamorous image never changed, but behind the scenes, she was dealing with a hidden medical battle that was slowly getting worse. And then, in 1998, the unthinkable happened. Florence's health crisis reached a heartbreaking end that shocked the world. The morning that shattered everything. On the night of September 20th, 1998, Florence Griffith Joyner was full of excitement and love. She and her husband, Al Joyner, were making plans to renew their wedding vows. They had chosen a beautiful location in Santa Barbara and were looking forward to celebrating their life together with family and close friends. Their daughter, Mary, now 7 years old, was with them at home. It was a quiet, happy evening. That night, Florence went to bed early. She was tired but in good spirits. Al decided to sleep on the couch, not wanting to wake her or their daughter during the night. He had no idea it would be the last time he'd see her alive. At around 6:30 a.m. the next morning, September 21st, 1998, Al got up and walked into the bedroom. What he saw would change his life forever. Florence was lying in bed, unresponsive. She wasn't breathing. Their daughter Mary was still asleep beside her. Al immediately called 911 and began trying to help, but it was too late. Paramedics arrived quickly, but nothing could be done. Florence Griffith Joyner was pronounced dead at just 38 years old. Her sudden death shocked her family, the sports world, and fans all over the globe. Just days earlier, she had appeared healthy, smiling in public and full of energy. The news spread quickly. People could hardly believe it. How could a woman so strong, so fit, and so full of life be gone so suddenly? For days, the media searched for answers. Friends, athletes, and public figures sent messages of love and grief. Her passing left a deep void not just in track and field, but in American culture. An autopsy would later reveal more details. But in that moment, none of it mattered to Al and Mary. They had lost a wife and a mother. The woman who had inspired millions with her speed, her grace, and her determination was gone. Still, her legacy didn't disappear. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning to grow, carried on by her family, fans, and the records she left behind. And soon the world would learn more about the true cause of her death and what it meant for her remarkable story. The truth behind Flojo's death. After Florence Griffith Joyner's sudden death at just 38 years old, the world was left in shock and confusion. Many people began asking the same questions. How could someone so strong and healthy die in her sleep? Was it related to her intense athletic career, or the rumors that had followed her for years? The answers came weeks later, after a full medical investigation and autopsy. The autopsy revealed that Florence had a cavernous angioma, a rare and often undetectable congenital brain condition. This means she was born with it. A cavernous angioma is a tangle of abnormally formed blood vessels in the brain. These vessels are fragile and can leak or bleed over time. In Florence's case, the condition had gone unnoticed for years, but it had been silently affecting her health, likely causing the seizures she had experienced since 1990. According to the coroner's report, this brain abnormality led to a fatal seizure on the night of her death. During her sleep, she experienced a severe seizure, which tragically led to her passing. The cause of death was linked to complications from the seizure. There was no sign of trauma, and nothing suspicious was found in her home. Importantly, toxicology tests showed no illegal drugs or banned substances in her system. The only medications found were acetaminophen, a common pain reliever, and diphenhydramine, an over-the-counter allergy and sleep aid. There was no evidence of performance-enhancing drugs, and nothing connected her death to doping, steroid use, or her years as a top-level athlete. For her family, it was both heartbreaking and relieving. They finally had answers. And for her fans and supporters around the world, it brought closure to years of unfair suspicion and rumors. Though her life ended far too early, Florence's story wasn't over because her legacy would only continue to grow. The chaos that followed. After Florence Griffith Joyner's unexpected death in 1998, her family and fans were left heartbroken. But soon after, mourning turned to confusion. A bitter family conflict began to unfold, one that would drag on for years in courtrooms and the media. In 1999, Florence's mother, Florence Dolores Griffith, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against her son-in-law, Al Joyner. The lawsuit accused Al of neglect and included serious allegations, though no evidence ever supported these claims. The timing and nature of the lawsuit shocked many, especially those who knew how devoted Al had been to Florence during their marriage and her health struggles. The legal issues didn't stop there. The two sides also began fighting over control of Florence's charitable foundation, which had been started to help underprivileged youth. They also argued over the ownership of her estate, which was estimated to be worth around $3 million. A major disagreement centered on a condo in Mission Viejo, which Al had purchased and allowed Florence's mother to live in. After Florence's death, Al requested that his mother-in-law move out, but the disagreement led to further legal tensions between the families. Public court documents also revealed financial troubles. Court documents revealed financial challenges, including unpaid expenses and outstanding debts, which added to the complications around the estate. Many people were surprised by this, given Florence's fame and past endorsement deals. But legal delays and questions over who controlled her estate kept funds tied up. Another major problem was the lack of a will. While some family members claimed Florence had made one, no legal will was ever found, which meant she had died intestate, without a documented plan for her assets. This made the legal battle even more complicated and painful for everyone involved. For 5 years, the case dragged on through courtrooms. Legal fees began to eat away at the estate. The money Florence had earned and hoped would help others was now being spent on lawyers and court costs. Finally, in 2003, a settlement was reached between Al Joyner and Florence's mother. By then, much of the estate had been drained, and the public image of Florence's legacy had taken a hit. Still, her daughter Mary was growing up, and she had her own dreams to chase, just like her mom once did. If you found this video inspiring, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next one.